But most important, we have our candidates with us.
Right.
Senator Rob Cartel is running for State House. Stephanie Thomas, who's hiding in the back. Stephanie is running against Gail Lavielle. And Will Haskell will join us shortly. I don't want to take up too much time. And Doug Stern is running for Judge. I want to just make one observation. Many of you probably, some of you read the New York Times, read Frank Bruni. He had a wonderful article, opinion piece today, talking about the secret weapon for Democrats. And he acknowledges that in some jurisdictions we have got very progressive people, winning elections, and in others it's more moderate Democrats winning elections. But they all have one thing in common, which is the it's the quality of the candidates that are coming out for Democrats on this cycle. And I'm proud of all be proud of the quality of the people who have stepped up. These people, and Will join us shortly, have stepped up to run in this election. So remain involved, go to our website, sign up for our emails. If everybody does a smidge more, we're going to win in November. Senator Chris Murray.
All right. Having a big round of applause for Tommy. Just an awesome job. Thank you. So awesome to be here with you guys. It's hotter inside than it is outside, so we'll keep this pretty brief, but I just want to convey my thanks to this just unbelievable lineup of candidates that we have here in Wilton and running in the general area. It's so true, right? I mean, the candidate quality really does make the difference, and between, I don't know if Will's here yet. Maybe I'll save my remarks about Will until he gets here, but for Ross, for Stephanie, for Doug, who are all running races that are eminently winnable and are running fantastic grassroots campaign-based races. I want to thank them. For Will, Will worked for me in, I think he did 17 different internships for me in different capacities. And we knew from the minute that he walked into our office that he was somebody special with a value set and a moral compass. That is rare, frankly, in somebody of his age, and a willingness to just work his tail off. And I'm really, really excited to be here with all of you guys. When I got elected in 2012 to this job, I asked my campaign staff, as they were sort of packing up the office, to just run some numbers for me about how we did in the 2012 election all across the state, town by town. And one of the things I asked them to do was take a look at the towns that had the highest number of what we call persuadable voters. These are voters that have histories of splitting their tickets. Of voting for Republicans and Democrats. And that tells you places where if you spend time, making your case door to door on the phones, you can actually have an impact. There are other places where, almost everybody are solid Republican voters or solid Democratic voters, and no matter how much time you spend working, you might not be able to change the balance. Well, this won't surprise you, but when I got the results, at the very top of the list, and I think it was sort of a top 5 town in terms of percentage of persuadable voters, was Wilton. Right, was this town, right? So, congratulations to be such a fair-minded town. You weigh both sides. That's great. But it means we got a lot of work to do here. It means we got a lot of work to do here because these are all, I say they're winnable seats because I've looked at the numbers. They're all winnable seats because there are plenty of people here in Wilton who are thinking about the decision that they are going to make, and even those that have voted Republican in the past, who maybe have voted Republican consistently, are watching what is happening right now in Washington and thinking that it's time for them to change the way in which they go to the polls. And so you have more persuadable voters now here than you ever have before. And the stakes, listen, you're here, right? So I'm preaching to the choir, right? So I don't need to tell you what the stakes are here. But nothing less than democracy is on the ballots here, right? Some of you have heard me say this, but just remember that this whole experiment that we're 2.5 centuries into is still an experiment, right? These ideas, things like the rule of law, the equality of humans, the belief in building multicultural societies, with tolerance and inclusion at the center. These are radical, radical notions. There's no other country in the history of the world that has been able to combine those three things: rule of law, right, equality as a basic operating principle, whether or not we're there or not, and multiculturalism. No other country has been able to do it, and so it's obvious that it's fragile. It should be self-apparent that we have to fight for those things, that if we do nothing, there will be attractive demagogues that come around and convince you that there's a different way of doing things. Vesting power in one person is always more efficient, right, than vesting power in all of us. And so this is one of those moments. This is one of those moments where, yeah, we got to fight like heck on guns and on the environment and on healthcare. And from my perspective, as tough as it is at the federal level, at least I know we have a buffer here in Connecticut. At least I know we have a Democratic governor and a Democratic legislature that's going to make sure that we implement the Clean Air Act and the Clean Water Act, not pull it apart like the EPA wants us to do. We are passing the strongest gun laws in the nation. That's why we have 400% less gun crime in Connecticut than they do in a state like Florida that has the loosest gun laws in the nation. I know that we're implementing the Affordable Care Act here. We're signing more people up for health care, not less people, even as Trump sabotages the healthcare system, because we have Democrats who believe in those things in the state legislature and a Democrat in the governor's office. And remember, the Republicans that are running for office now, they are not your father's Republicans, right? The Republican Party has quietly been taken over the last 10 years by the Tea Party and the Trumpists. That's who the Connecticut Republican Party is, and it's not a coincidence that a day after he won the primary, Bob Stefanowski got a glowing tweet of endorsement from Donald Trump. That's the stakes. The stakes are this layer of protection that we have had from the worst, the most reckless, the most racist parts of the Trump agenda can come crumbling down if we don't invest in these races. Now, I'm on the ballot too, so I need your help. But I am deeply invested in these races and these people who are with me here today, because this moment calls for a team approach to resistance, and it really will be one of these moments in your life that you look back upon 10, 20, 30 years from now, that you will tell your kids and your grandkids about what you did in the fall of 2018, when democracy was hanging in the balance. Inventory yourself every single week, right? How many phone calls have you made? How many doors did you knock? Were you online talking to your friends? Did you try to convince a few of your more apathetic neighbors to come out and show up in this midterm election? What did you do every single week? Every single Sunday night, inventory yourself. There's only 50 days to go, and the stakes couldn't be higher. The stakes couldn't be higher, and you have this amazing opportunity to elect these people who likely would have never run if not for this moment, right? So the silver lining is that you're going to end up not only sending a signal to the nation that we're still invested in the experiment to actually create a check in Washington against the worst parts of this agenda, but you get people, right, like Ross and Stephanie and Will in the state legislature who are going to be there for a long time, who are going to fundamentally just brighten our spirits and lift our load. And so I'm here to support them. I know you are here. So go out and knock some doors. Thank you, everybody.